The reason I started painting portraits was really a matter of necessity because I needed to sell paintings. I found it easier to sell portraits of people than it was to paint pictures and hope somebody came to my studio to see them. Initially, I really thought that it was more of a sort of craft in a way. I didn't really take it as seriously as the paintings I really wanted to paint, and somewhere along the line that sort of shifted. And I think some of what shifted was I had a sort of timidity about how far to push my subjects, and maybe breaking new territory for me artistically and creatively, and pleasing them in a way. And there's a very fine line there. The older I get, the less I am interested in pleasing people. I think that's sort of a natural thing that happens as you get older. For me, I build a framework of a face or body or whatever and try to imbue it with some kind of life. If I'm successful, that happens. And if I'm not, it's just not a very successful painting. Life's pretty good if you don't get in its way. The feeling I have about living, if we overthink it, if we overanalyze it, it's the same with a painting. If we overthink it and overanalyze it, then it becomes something else. It's not a spontaneous gesture. And if the magic's going to happen at all, it happens in a spontaneous gesture. It happens before we start analyzing it. Leave the analyzing to later and leave it up to other people generally. They'll have their own take on it. I think we have a tendency in our culture to live too much in our heads because we have to. We're coping with things every day. But really, where for me art matters and life matters, it's a visceral thing. It's a gut shot in a way that it touches me in ways that are not about thought. It's before thought, and I think that's the most moving part of being a human being is that kind of where that comes from. A lot of what I consider to be beautiful, other people look at as maybe a little too raw or a little too exposed, or sometimes downright ugly. But again, it goes back to that idea that beauty is not necessarily pretty. Beauty to me is something that invokes something. I mean, sadness to me can be a really beautiful thing. I had a period of time when I just didn't know when to stop. And, you can ruin a painting. And actually, Kim is very good. Kim has a much better shit detector than I do often. And Kim would come in and just say, you know what? Why don't you put that away for a while? Because, you're bludgeoning the thing to death. And she was right. I've gotten better at it. Actually, the older I get, I'm not as interested in completing what I used to figure was a completed piece. I like to leave things a little. I think some things should be left a little unfinished.